good to see you for the first time. So 10 years ago, I decided to pack my suitcase and leave Yaounde, Cameroon, my hometown, and go to Washington. And this is just so you can get an idea of where Cameroon is, Yaounde, and then Washington. And as you can see, it was a flight which, if it was direct, would have taken about 19 hours. The only problem is that this is where I was really going. So, my plan was to travel to the US 10 years ago and hopefully see this. But what I really ended up seeing was this. And when I got to Seattle and saw the Space Needle, I was pretty upset, to be honest, because I had made plans of seeing the White House and all the monuments you see on TV, because growing up, when I would watch the news and hear Washington, 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 it was never Washington State. It was Washington, D.C. So in my mind, there was only one Washington. I was going there. So after going through a little bit of stress and almost anxiety about the fact that I had gone to the wrong Washington, I chose to stay there and go to school there and give it a shot. After my first trimester, about 3 months into the school year, I struggled through my first writing class. My professor at the end was so impressed that I had gotten a really, really good grade that she called me out for a meeting and said, I would like for you to become a writing tutor. Now, this made no sense to me at all, because just 3 months earlier, on the flight to Washington State, now Washington, D.C., my English was so poor that I had practiced 2 simple words, yes and no. In addition to that, I had practiced the perfect eye contact technique to look at you in the eyes and say yes or no in a way that convinced you that I understood what you were asking, but really I had no idea because I did not understand English. So on the flight attendant comes and asks me, sir, do you want fish or chicken for dinner? So I think to myself, am I going to say yes or no? Is that fish or chicken? So I look at her, eye contact, yes. So you can guess how that went, right? So after a few back and forth, she just gave me chicken because she figured, hey, it seems like you want the first option that I gave or the second one. So I got chicken. So come back to 3 months later, after my first writing class, having struggled through English 101, and they want me to be a writing tutor. And I told her, it doesn't make any sense, right? If I survey all the external data I have just gotten in this country, I don't know how to speak the language. I have to rehearse every single sentence in French in my mind before I say it in English. How could you ask me to teach English to other people? So although it made no sense, something inside me just kind of pushed me the same way I was pushed inside to leave Yaounde and go to Washington, and pushed me to go. So I went for the interview, and it ended up becoming a very, very interesting situation for me because my life changed because I chose to go to the interview and work in the writing center. This is also where I met my wife, but that's a whole different TED Talk. So I'm not going to go into that now. So as a writing tutor, I found myself having to learn in order to teach. And that was the best way I could have learned English because I was always pretending to know what I was doing, and people coming to me for help, I had to leave feeling like I had helped them. So I worked extra hard for the 1.5 years at Highland Community College and the 1.5 years at University of Washington as a writing tutor to teach other people English, even though really I started that job only 3 months after the famous yes to fish or chicken. As I was about to graduate, I was worried about the economy, just like everybody else. It was 2011. People around me said, you have to have a degree in engineering or do computer science, or you need to be a nurse to have a successful career. In fact, my mother-in-law at one point said that you could either be a plumber or a bus driver. That's going to give you something, but a degree in liberal arts? I don't know what you're going to do with that, in interdisciplinary art. So I went to a job fair trying to find any job. So I stopped every way I could. So I spoke to the T-Mobile representative, and then I went through the FBI guy. Any job I could have found, I was trying to get it. Then I stumbled up with this guy who just said, you know what? We are hiring recent graduates, and we want them to become teachers in hard to staff schools in the inner city around the country. And you can choose 3 states or cities, and you might get one of those ones to go teach there. And you have some experience being a writing tutor, so perhaps you can teach. So I said, okay, sounds good to me. Especially because he said that the mission of this company was to one day guarantee that all children in this country will get access to an equal, to perfect education. So I said, yes, I'm going to do it. I forgot to apply, and I got a phone call from this guy and said, hey, today is the last day to apply, and make sure that you go through it. So I went through the application process, not thinking much about it, and I got in. My first choice was Seattle. I didn't get to stay there. I was going to be going to Miami to teach, so that sounded good to me. A few weeks before the end of the school year, one of my classmates got an email sent on her behalf to almost the whole school, and this was a very congratulatory email about the fact that she had just joined this big company and organization called Teach for America. And they were placing the people all around the country to become teachers. And everybody started emailing back and saying, congratulations, Chelsea, this is awesome. Because that year, only 11% of people who applied actually got in. So when I saw that, I said, hey, guys, I think I'm working for those people too. What's this Teach for America thing? So that's when I realized that apparently it was a big deal to be in Teach for America. I researched it, and only at that point did I figure that the instinct that pushed me to just apply and keep moving on would have been a little interesting had I known just how difficult it was to get in. So you can see the theme already of just following that gut reaction that pushes you towards something, even if everything else outside doesn't make sense. So I taught for 4 years in Miami, and towards the last year, I realized that my passion for literacy and my passion for fitness could merge and come up with something with it. And even though there was not anybody in my direct surrounding that had ever come up with a company or an organization or was an entrepreneur, I decided to create a company and go through all the steps. And that's how FitLit was born. And FitLit is as simple as that. Fit for fitness, lit for literature. So all the steps that had to be followed to come up with the idea, create the company, we all went to them step by step, even though nobody around me would have inspired me to say, you know, you can do this, go ahead. So again, it made no sense, but I followed my instinct and did it. And ultimately, thanks to this, without even applying, a couple years later, I received an award from University Johns Hopkins for being an outstanding recent graduate through the work of FitLit. The point of all this is that all these decisions that I made, if I had looked at what the outside world was telling me and taken that data very seriously and overanalyzed it, I would have never pursued any of those dreams. I would have never left my country to go to Deauvron, Washington, stay there, work in the writing center, even though I could barely speak English, create a company, and receive an award if I had listened to what everybody else was saying. The point here is that as human beings, we are, by default, overthinkers. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain in charge of thinking, is more developed in human beings than in all other creatures. So it makes sense that we're always overanalyzing and planning for the bad case scenarios, the worst case scenarios. But sometimes it is important to realize that you are actually the director of your own movie. What does that mean? You actually get to author everything that happens in your life. You choose the people, you choose the setting, you can even choose the background music that plays, and you can steward all that to the way that you want, even if the data around you and outside of you doesn't allow for it. So my conclusion to all this is that consistency is extremely important to us because things have been done this way for years. We should continue doing it that way because it's safe. But sometimes, like a little crack in that consistency is actually more authentic. So authenticity is what I want to close with. But when I say authenticity, I mean authenticity when it comes to what you call authentic. And what you call authentic is what is authentic to you right now. Not what it was last year or yesterday or what it will be tomorrow. You can change your mind about your authenticity. If right now it feels like it's the right decision, the right move to you, just follow it. Even if last year you would have said something different and next year you would change. So when in doubt, be authentically you. Thank you.